You said a couple weeks ago the ball club would tell you the direction you would take as far as the trade deadline, and that we're not there yet. But have they told you any direction with this recent uptick and what's happening?
It just continues to show amazing resiliency and fight. And as the general manager, you want to honor that. And 3.5 games out of a division lead, could climb over some teams to get to the division top. Have to climb over some teams to get into the wild card. But we don't take that for granted, that you have a chance in the postseason. And again, absolutely want to honor this group. We had one of the best starting rotations in baseball the first month, and didn't really hit all that well. And from May 1st on, we've been among the best offenses in the National League. And if we could put those two clubs together, we could do some damages.
How do you honor that?
Well, you honor that by looking to see if there are opportunities to add to it. You honor that by respecting where we are and maybe not making a move that might have some future value, but takes away from your existing club. And just respect their resiliency, their hard work, and their fire.
How much does that human element, is it the way I'm reading you right when you're saying that? Like, if you make a calculated, cold decision that maybe I wouldn't, but you know what, I have to respect my guys. I mean, is that part of what your job is too, or?
Yeah, as we looked at the 16 and 17 clubs and the addition of Vasquez and Hearn for Mark Melanson for 2 months, or Mark Melanson, business-wise, it's a great move. But as you look back at the human element of it, might have taken some of the air out of the sails of that club. We were further out. We didn't feel as good about that club as we feel about this club. Repeated that a year later with O'Neill Cruz for Tony Watson, and just need to be cognizant of that. Now, we went big last summer, and that didn't work either. So I'm 0 for 3 in the last 3 trade deadlines in terms of providing a boost to the Major League club. But that's the challenge we have, is always walking that balance between now, next year, and the future years.
You know, with only one trade deadline this year, have you noticed more talk earlier than maybe in other years now that there was also the fallback at the end of August?
The names are different. Teams are talking about moving normally this time of year, it's all about the marquee player. It's the top guys. So if you need X, it's the top guys that you're talking about at this point in time. This year, there's been more conversations as we're looking to add X, or as teams are looking to add Y. It could be a little different in that July 31st could be a very busy time, because you no longer have the fallback of teams now have to make a call, and you no longer have the fallback of being able to get somebody, if you're a big market, that can go buy a contract and just take on a contract in August. That now has to be done by July 31st.
You talked about needing to pass a number of teams. How does the closeness of the division 1 through 5 play into the way you look at things going forward?
Well, on the one hand, everybody's in it. Everybody's 2 good weeks against the division from flipping the division. The challenge is it's going to make it that much more difficult to win a second wild card, or maybe even a first wild card, because we're just going to beat each other up all summer. And to accumulate that win total, you need some wins somewhere along the way. And if there's not an easy team in the division to beat up on, they're harder to come by, and which makes the division championship, which is ultimately what you want to do anyway. In our experience, it'd be better to win a division instead of facing the 1-game wild card again. At the same time, playoffs are playoffs, and you've got to get into the wild card. You've got to get to win a division. You've got to get in to win, and that remains the goal.
Your division's really an outlier in that all 5 teams are still in it and really seem to have been going for it all season. What do you attribute that to, and how does that change things that you don't have teams that are maybe not tanking, but not putting all their assets into this season?
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in the division. Each of us has our flaws, but there's a very deep level of talent in this division, and you have 5 teams that their ambition is to make the postseason, and that's not the case in some of the other divisions, and that's not criticism. Teams cycle in and cycle out. It's a part of the industry. It's a part of the game. It's been a part of the game for decades. It's not a new thing. We're just in a situation where you've got 5 teams that are fighting to make that postseason, and that was their goal at the start of the season, and we'll see where we are on July 31st and see if there are still 5 of us fighting to get to the postseason.
Given the way this team is playing, when teams come to you, maybe inquiring about a player or two, how do you handle that?
Well, you always listen, because maybe there is a Melanson or a Tony Watson situation out there where we get somebody that we really like, and then how do we go to work to backfill the player that we're trading? So it's my job. It's my job. It's a general manager's job to always entertain thoughts, to always listen to thoughts, to see if there are good baseball trades out there. But then there is the human element of it. There is the fact of where are we in this process, and is it a difference maker? And as we thought with Vasquez and Herm, we thought that was a difference maker deal. And we had a couple guys that we could slide to the back end, and we'd have to fill in the middle. Was our thought. It didn't work out great, and the same with the Watson deal. We had guys that were pitching really well around him in the bullpen, and we thought we could replace him. Again, it didn't work out great in the short term, but we like the players that we got back in the long term a lot. But it is something that we'll absolutely take into consideration this year, is the impact that it had on those major league teams, those current major league teams, compared to what the future major league teams benefited from those moves.
Watching this team, are you starting to see things that maybe, if this track continues with you guys winning and being in it, that you would maybe like to see fixed, or areas you could address, or is it maybe premature to start thinking that?
There are some relievers that seem to be turning the corner and adding some depth to the leverage innings and options for Clint. The challenge, we've still got to continue to find a way to get more innings out of our starters, and again, this has been another stretch of time where very few of our starters have gotten very deep into the game, and you tax a bullpen, and that's where we've had to get creative this weekend to try to get through the weekend in innings, and Clint's had to go back to using his bullpen because he has to, not because when he wants to win games, and you know, the position player group, I mean, it's a deep group, and has a chance to get deeper with Polanco coming back. Getting Keone Kella back, hopefully, ideally somewhere toward the end of the month. We'll be in a couple nice trade acquisitions for us right there, and where else can we add? We'll continue to explore.
How does the uncertainty with Jameson Taillon affect things, and do you have any sort of update on what his plans are for the next week or so?
Well, Jameson's had a really good run here lately where he feels good. He's starting throwing activities, more moving along the baseball progression. Hopefully we'll continue to have really good days there. The challenge with any time a pitcher's down, it's not only the downtime, but it's the build back up time. Excited that Jameson feels good, excited that he's ready to take this next step in his progression, and hopefully things will go well for him as he works through it.
You know, you've had a couple of guys, prominent relievers, Feliz and Rodriguez, spend a little bit of time in Indy and then come back stronger. What went into the process? Not just, mechanically or whatever, but mentally too, to get them back up here.
Yeah, in Richard's case, it was really just a breather. Clint's had a ton of success by giving some of our position players who were struggling 3 days off, and just a mental breather. For a reliever, it's tough to do because it's hard to, especially when the starters aren't giving you innings, it's tough to give a reliever, okay, you're not going to pitch for 3 days. So it was a mental breather, a chance to refine his mechanics, a chance to get him back to what he did so well last year, and it seems to have worked. In Michael Felice's case, it was just a matter of innings. We needed innings, and we were, for a little while there, we were in that negative churn of our bullpen where we had optional relievers that we were just kind of running through because we needed somebody else fresh to pitch tomorrow. In Michael's case, he went down on a mission and went down to go down and never come back, never come back to the big leagues and never go back out again. And that's he's thrown the ball really well since coming back. And in Michael's case, we go all the way back to spring training. He always threw that first inning, or almost always threw that first inning really well. And then out of necessity, we'd ask him to go a second, and that's where he'd give up the run or two. And so his ERA doesn't look good, but that first inning typically has been really good for him.
You've kind of started to wrap up those signings in the first half of the draft from this year. How do you evaluate how the scouts and their staff have really gone through this process acquiring new talent in these draft picks?
Yeah, I think every general manager loves their draft class, and I'm not sure I've ever heard anybody say, "Wow, we just didn't do a very good job this year." But it is the reality. Is we like the players that we sign. They do things that we like. They're the people that we like. We think there's projection to them. They have traits that we believe we can build upon in our development system, and we like this class a lot. And the hardest part is, with all due respect to the draft experts, they might have seen a player once, they might have seen him in February and didn't see him again, and we've seen these guys in some cases 8, 9, 10 times with 6 or 7 different people, and have a lot more information. So unlike basketball or football, where everybody's kind of working off the same information, in baseball there's a ton of different information from club to club, let alone club to the draft experts, and they have a really hard job to do because they can only see they're a scouting department of one. And I know some of the players that we drafted were perceived overdrafts. They do some things that we really like, and you go back through history, and sometimes the best players taken in the 4th round, and about half the first rounders aren't going to be very good, and that's the amazing part about the draft is if you get one good big leaguer, 3 or 4 guys who have a decent career, and then a handful of up-down guys, you've had a great draft. Basically, it's one average or better big leaguer, and that's the normal major league draft.
I wanted to ask you about Will Craig with the Futures game tonight. What have you liked about his development? What steps has he taken, and what steps does he still need to take to get up here?
Obviously, continue to work hard defensively at first base. Has made improvements there. The power is showing up. The next step for him is combining that good hitter that we believed he was out of the draft, that he showed his first couple of years, with the power that we're now seeing, so that he's a good hitter with power versus a guy that's going to look to hit a home run this at bat, and then his next at bat he's going to shorten up and hit a line drive over second to pick up the RBI. There's a combination that can come in there. We're seeing it happen with Josh Bell this year, where he's a good hitter with power rather than trying to be either or in each at bat. That's the next step in the evolution. Not to say he needs to become Josh Bell. We'll gladly take it, but it's the next step in the evolution of a good hitter that has power. Is how do they do both in the same at bat, the same pitch, without predetermining? Okay, this is a power at bat, this is a base hit at bat.
Cervelli, what's the latest on him? Is it a
Yeah,
possibility that his days are over as a catcher?
Yeah, as we go through with Cervi, we need to be cognizant that there may be a position change at hand. We're continuing to work through the assessment and the evaluation process. Obviously, you've seen him take a ton of work at third and around the infield, and we have to be open to the fact that maybe third base or first base or right field or bat off the bench, or maybe he becomes a regular somewhere at each of those, but we've got pretty good players there now. So continuing to work with Cervi, continuing to gather as much information as we can to help him make the best decision for his career, and if that means not catching anymore, then we get to that point, and that's what we have to assess as we look forward.
You know, you've said in the past, not even so much as a GM of the Pirates, but as someone within baseball, how concerned you are about catchers and the injuries that occur to them. What, if anything, can you take from this situation, setting him aside specifically, that can be worked with at the minor league levels, at the instructional levels, even lower in Latin America, wherever, where you can keep catchers as healthy as they can be?
Yeah, it's a great question and a really hard one to answer at this point. I mean, technology is the first step. I mean, what else can we do from a technological standpoint? We're exploring basically anything and everything that people send to us. We're reading boxing blogs to try to figure out how they deal with concussions in boxing and diagnose them and work through them. So our group has done an exhaustive search. We haven't come up with a great answer yet, obviously, because Cervi still had some challenges. From an instruction standpoint, if you get up closer, then you're more susceptible to catcher interference, as we've seen a couple times here with Diaz.
Just now.
If you sit too far back, then you're not going to get the pitches, the framing, the receiving isn't historically. If you sit too far back, so there's that never-ending challenge, and there are just some risks that are inherent in the position. How do we better diagnose, assess, and game plan for a return from a concussion? The 7-day DL or 7-day IL is a great step in the great first step. How do we build upon that, and how do we continue to add future ways to take the pressure off the player to feel like he needs to return, yet also honor the player's wishes to get back out there?
But the reason I ask, I guess, about the minors is that that's going to be more evident in the major leagues, where all eyes are on the game and TV and everything else here. Can there be even more of an emphasis? Again, not Pirates, not you, everybody.
Well, you hope that there is.
They're going to want to prove themselves.
Yeah, at the major league level, it is about the W tonight. At the minor league level, yes, we want to win that game, and we want to win every single game that we play. Every time we take the field in the minor leagues, whether it's an extended spring training game or a game in Indy, our job is to win that game. At the same time, there's a little bit of a different pressure when that catcher takes a ball off the mask in the second inning to continue in that game versus getting him out, letting him recover. And I think our group does a really nice job of getting that question, any question whatsoever, we get him out of the game. And I think we do a good job of that as the industry. That pressure to win, one of those 162 to major league level puts a whole nother level of stress on the decision and the decision process.
Over these last couple of months of his contract with you guys, who is it that makes that call to Cervelli? Is it you guys saying, look, we know you want to catch, but this is how it is going to be. You're now no longer a catcher for us, or is it his call to say, I want to keep trying it?
Well, our job is to provide them with the best possible information, the best possible recommendations that we possibly can. We'll continue to do that in this situation and in all situations. But when it comes down to a medical decision, whether to have surgery or not, whether to catch or not, ultimately it is the player's decision. We're not going to force somebody to not have surgery, to have surgery, to play a position that medically puts them at risk. The interesting thing would be a player that wants to continue to do something that puts them in harm's way. Then it becomes a little bit of a different story. But our discussions with Cervelli to date have been about playing other positions, and we need to honor and respect that. And he's worked so hard to become major league ready in a very short period of time at those positions. We've talked to him about there's going to be a rehab needed once we get to the point in time where he's cleared to go play games. And the discussions have been about things other than catching for the short term and figure out where that goes from there.
Could he, in theory, be cleared to play third base but not cleared to catch? Or if you're cleared to play, are you cleared to play?
Well, cleared to play is cleared to play. The concussion protocol won't be position specific. If he's cleared to play, he's cleared to play, and then the next thing becomes a discussion with Cervelli. Where does he feel best ready to help a club, and what's the best thing for him short term and long term? And we've been very aggressive with, he's going to be a former player a lot longer than he's been a player. And we want him to be great into his 50s and 60s and beyond, and to be a dad, and if that's what he wants to do, and to have a great post-playing life. And sometimes it's bigger than today's game.
Are you comfortable with the idea of him catching again for the Pirates, or is that something you'd prefer him not to do?
That's another discussion with Cervelli as we get to that point that we have to have. Obviously, it's we want to honor his wishes if he wants to catch again. And at this point, not ready to make a public statement on that. But we've got a lot of dialogue with Cervelli about where we can help him in this decision process and where we can go in this decision process. And once we've got all that information, we'll then have a really good sit down with him.
I heard you say in your show now you're going to go to the game and go to everything Cleveland with your boys. How's that going to be watching Josh at home? Are you going to be excited? Yeah. Easy? Is it going to be fun?
Absolutely. To watch the man he's becoming and the player he's becoming, and to be able to just go sit in the right field corner and cheer for him at the home run derby will be a blast. And my sons have kind of grown up with Josh. Josh has been here almost as long as I have, it feels like, as he's given the year that he was drafted and his progression. And so this will be a fun one to watch. And it was great to watch Kutch on TV and Pedro on TV, but to watch Josh in person would be a blast. And my sons have been hammering me since I got the job that they wanted to go to the Futures game. We've never been able to because of our game being at the same time, but this year it's 2 hours northwest, and we can bounce over and watch the Futures game with them tonight.
We've seen situations where other teams where different general managers throwing chairs, we've heard teams, managers exploding, tables being returned and whatnot. How does your team always seem so harmonious? I mean, either they're hiding it well, or that's really never been the MO of your team. And not just this year, but throughout the course of your tenure.
I don't know. I think there's a personality, personalities, how we conduct our business. I promise you, if that happened, he's not the first general manager to yell at a manager, and the next time a manager yells at a general manager is not the first time. I just think there's a ton of respect and appreciation for each role. I could never do his job, and Clint probably could be a pretty good GM if he wanted to, but these are not easy jobs, and I actually hate the fact that something like that got out, because I promise you it's not the only place in the industry that's happened this year over the last 10 years, and it's a shame that leaked, because these are intense positions, these are pressure-packed positions, these are high emotion decisions that we make and that we go through, and that's probably the best answer I can give you. It happens in a lot of places. It just doesn't leak in a lot of places.
Did you ever heat a chair?
No.
Chair? No, not a chair.
That I've not done.
I mean, even with the players, it seems that this, you always you hear that from this team this year, that it's just a good group. The guys fit. Is that something you guys think of when you're assembling the team? How they're going to fit? How their personalities, their emotions, their leadership, for lack of a better word, is going to fit?
It is. We're all flawed in some way. We all blend with a group better than others in some ways, and that is important to us. And do they want to win? Do they care about their teammates? Do they show up to compete every day? I mean, those are questions that we ask about every player that we're talking about acquiring, whether it's out of the draft or a waiver claim or a small trade, a major trade. I mean, there's a lot that we're working to understand how the player ticks and how would he fit, because it isn't just about collecting talent. If you're only going to collect talent, you better win, because if you don't win, it's going to get ugly in a hurry. And it's not just about collecting good guys, because you do need to have talent to win, and we work to find that balance.